Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello, freaks and fiends, and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I am your host, the outlaw Dr. Harley Ray Smokenstein, THC, and with me, as always, is my very own Scream Queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the India horror, the expert of grindhouse guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Buddy Rose.
Hi.
And it is hot as fucking balls in this studio.
Pretty hot.
God damn. I do love that about this country, though.
What? When it gets hot, hot?
No. It's like we spend 90% of the year going, fucking rain. This bitch of a rain. I wish it would just fuck off. All I want is a bit of heat, and then the heat hits, and it's like, I can't handle this shit, man.
It's not the heat we can't handle. It's the humidity. I've met people that have come from warmer countries, and it's like your heat hits different. It's because we're such a wet country.
It's because it rains so fucking much here that we fucking... Well, we don't. I'm enjoying it to a degree. I mean, there is the whole, not being able to breathe thing.
But in fairness, I don't suffer with that, but you do suffer with hay fever.
I do have it. This is what we're right. If it gets too warm in here, right? I might want to take my top off, but I'm really self-conscious. So will you do it with me?
I think I've done it enough.
It was worth the try, guys. That was worth the try.
Cheap trick.
All right. So this week we start to explore the history of the galaxy, at least according to a man by the name of George Lucas, which begs the question, who the fuck is George Lucas and how does he know so much about what happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away from our own?
Well, this is actually interesting because this is the first time we're covering a fun, friendly religious cult. Is cult the right word? Like, it seems like there are many different religions mixed in here and most of them are at odds with each other.
Yeah, it's a cult like in their unwavering belief in all the information that the followers collect from George. The followers that are known as Galactic Historians. Primarily, the worst of it is that they have undying loyalty to Lucas.
Yeah.
But certainly on the scale of bad cults, this one is nowhere near. It's not even on the scale. It's not top or bottom. They did this pretty easy going. There's no real sexual abuse. In fact, up until very lately, abstinence was encouraged, and a lot of followers, especially in the 80s and 90s, remained virgins long after you'd expect them
I believe it.
So no real issues with doomsday conspiracies unless you count the odd Death Star, or commune-like existence unless you count Skywalker Ranch. Okay, maybe. Okay, maybe there's more to this than we know, but from the outside, it seems all good. In fact, about the only toxic trait I could find in this whole thing is that George himself has a tendency to throw the odd tantrum, especially when his historical accuracy and sources are questioned. Which is why we won't spend too much time. To be honest, it's not even just that we're not spending too much time with him. Outside of this story, George Lucas isn't a particularly interesting topic because, like you said, he isn't a big bad cult leader.
No.
He's just someone who claims to know a lot about what happened in the galaxy thousands of years ago and is giving us that information.
Not in this galaxy. Was it this galaxy?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't fucking know. There's humans involved, so we're definitely there somewhere, unless we have all done a different...
I thought it was a far, far away galaxy.
Oh yeah, we're in a galaxy far, far away. So yeah, it is. According to George Lucas, yeah, we are far, far away. So
Okay, but I mean, like, are we going to cover the story of how he got the information, aren't we?
the droids from space, of course we are. We're not going to let them out. Essentially, I would say a quick overview of his life prior to the discovery of the history of the galaxy. And then from there on, we are just going to kind of tear into what he claims happens in the galaxy. Because we got 35 years worth of that to cover.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
So
we're
we'll be here for a few weeks, like just covering Lucas and his story and the main beats of the history of the galaxy, which spans for about, as you said, 25,000 years or so. And then every now and again, we'll add to the story with individual tales of legendary figures who are said to have inhabited this galaxy and their roles in shaping it.
Yeah, so we're going to be here for 4 weeks covering this.
Mm-hmm.
And then every now and again, over time, we'll come. So, because I know some people are really into this.
Mm-hmm.
They're really into George and they're really into his stories and his ideas.
Okay.
So there's going to be people who listen to us cover this over 4 weeks and they're going to say, you left this out. You left that out. You never said this. You never said that.
We're keeping
You
it
only
for
briefly
another
touched on these
time.
people. Yeah, but that's exactly what we're doing.
Mhm.
We are briefly touching on 35 years. Over the next coming years, every now and again, we will jump back on and we'll do extra episodes where we'll do 1 or 2 parters
Mhm.
on certain individuals, certain wars, certain eras.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like the roadmap of what happens so that when we do those little episodes, you'll understand what was going on in the... We won't have to give you a lot of context and background.
Yeah,
You can come
yeah.
back to this 4-episode series, listen to it, and know exactly where we're jumping back in with the story. Because we'll
Okay.
jump back and forth. And
Yeah,
in and out.
yeah.
I mean, George himself likes to do that. Sometimes he tells you the story of what happened later in the 25,000 years. Sometimes he'll go right back. I mean, he tells the middle of the story first, then he tells the start of the story as he claims it before, after that, and then he tells us the future of the story. I don't know. The dude is all over the place. But I will say it's a pity he didn't just sell this story to Disney or something. I mean, the dude would have made like $4 billion
Easily.
easy from this. I mean, it's thick with information.
Yeah.
As you're about to find out for the next 4 fucking weeks, because these scripts are long. But yeah, I mean, between books, comics, video games, toys, TV shows, movies, he's really been a fucking missed opportunity for this guy. I mean, instead of being the crazy ancient alien theorist, he could have been like, a science fiction icon. But,
That's
live and
true.
learn.
And clearly a missed opportunity. And as you said, live and learn. So are we ready to get into the story?
I was born ready.
Okay. So George Walton Lucas Jr. was born on May 14th, 1944 in Modesto, California, a small agricultural city in the Central Valley. He is the son of Dorothy Eleanora Lucas and George Walton Lucas Sr. and is of German, Swiss German, English, Scottish, and distant Dutch and French descent.
Might have been easier to say what he fucking wasn't.
Exactly. He grew up in Modesto, and funny enough, his family attended Disneyland during its opening week in July 1955.
Yeah, see?
See?
Could have worked out. He could have said I was there first day. Why
Could've.
didn't you buy these stories off me? But
He was interested in comics and science fiction, including television programs such as the Flash Gordon series.
so straight away, we have an interest in fantasy lands and distant galaxies.
So George, before being known as the head galactic historian, was primarily known as a writer.
God, I wish I could be known as a head galactic historian. It's an awesome fucking title.
Yeah. The HGC. HGH.
So, before he became a writer, he wanted to be a race car driver. But on June 12, 1962, a few days before his high school graduation, Lucas was driving his souped-up car when another driver broadsided him, flipping his car several times before he crashed it into a tree. Lucas's seatbelt snapped, ejecting him and thereby saving his life. However, his lungs were bruised from severe hemorrhaging and he required emergency medical treatment. The incident caused him to lose interest in racing as a career.
Blame him. My dad used to race cars. He attended Modesto Junior College, where he studied anthropology, sociology, and literature, amongst other subjects. And once he graduated, he moved straight into writing and published his first work at the age of just 25 years old.
And this wasn't like out in the fringe of some niche genre either.
No.
His books were highly acclaimed, with his first 2 novels being adapted for film, with his 2 biggest hits and biggest cash cows being THX 1138 and American Graffiti. I have had both of them on my fucking list to watch for donkey's years.
THX 1138, yeah, because that was more on my radar because I always just thought it was Thanks 1138.
No, I'd heard of American Graffiti before I heard of THX, to be honest with you. But I'll check them out. I'll definitely check them out. I'm kind of interested to see what this guy comes out with after everything I've read about him in the last couple of weeks.
But early success can be a dangerous thing. By 1973, at just 29 years old, Lucas, financial and critical success with his first 2 ventures, found himself locked down with a bad case of writer's block. The block would plague the young writer for close to 4 years. In that time, he tried everything to shake the cobwebs from his brain and began research for what he hoped would be his next big success, an idea he had for a sci-fi fantasy movie called The Star Wars.
Yeah, George was big into the Ancient Alien Theory, a subject we have covered more than once on this show.
So we're handing out conflicting information. So, I mean, so far we've covered cases like Teddy Gatz, who said we were created by the Andromedans, and Zachary Sitchin, who claimed the Anunnaki were our ancient gods.
Thankfully, along with Ancient Alien Theory, though, we also have multiverse theory that says really all this could have happened all at the same time, just in different universes, in different dimensions, and the Andromedans or the Anunnaki might be human creators from a different universe.
Exactly.
Either way, and plus also, these are all just theories. So technically, one of them could be right, one of them could be wrong. We're just giving you the theories. We're not giving you facts here. Either way, Lucas' accounts happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away from ours. So he himself has hypothesized that he was given this information to catch mankind up on the history of the universe before we get invited to join the Galactic Republic. Kind of like orientation before disclosure. Later, we'll see how all this information is released on a timer, with pieces of the history revealed over decades, like the information is kind of time-locked to release gradually as humans evolve with the time.
Yeah, and we'll be getting to that in a few minutes.
Yeah, good. Then we're past the boring part here. The bio shit is over. It's time to get into the juicy shit.
Juicy bits. Really, like you even make alien cults sound dirty.
Hey, I've done my fucking research on this subject. If Lucas is right, we got some hot-ass aliens coming our way. Have you seen a Twi'lek? God damn, they're hot. How do you feel about a trouble with an alien?
Yeah, I'm cool with it. Point me to the Wookiees and prepare for things to get hairy. You're not the only one that likes researching hot aliens, in fairness.
Okay, scratch the trouble. Alien swingers it is!
I'm just going to say yeah. Because it'll make you happy, and I'm 99% sure none of this is real anyway, and on the 1% chance that it is true, it probably won't happen in our lifetime, so I think I'm safe.
Please, gods, if you do anything for me in this lifetime, make the story real. Make it so I wake up tomorrow to breaking news. The Galactic Republic has invaded, arrested nearly all our leaders for war crimes and crimes against humanity, and allow me to have some fun with Bunny and a Twi'lek.
You pronounced Wookiee wrong.
You're ruining this for me.
Nice. Well, can I get on with the story so people know what the fuck it is you're talking about?
I wish you would, fantasy killer.
So, as we said, in the throes of severe writer's block, Lucas began deep research on an alien theory, even going so far as to travel to well-known alien hotspots like Roswell, Fergina in Brazil, Bonny Ridge in Scotland, and Rua in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, Zimbabwe is interesting. All right, before we get that though, Brazil is a crazy one. It's a real hotspot in Brazil. Apparently, they've had like full-on battles in the sky. They've had their own version of Roswell.
So has Los Angeles. Haven't they had a battle in the sky as well?
Yeah, that was almost kind of like before they could even take photographs. There's pictures, like drawings of the battle over Los Angeles. All right.
That was in the early 1900s. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. Afterwards. But the Brazil one, I nearly believe because there was a dude on that documentary and he brought him to the site where he said he came across the crash first. And the guy just started crying, saying, "It was here. It was here. It was here. It was here."
I remember that one. Yeah.
And then when he was asked about it, he was like, "Have you made any money out of this?" And he's like, "Money? I've lost my family, my friends. I wish I never see aliens. So it was like, that dude, I believed that guy. The one in Zimbabwe, though, is wild. A bunch of primary school kids on recess claimed to see a flying disc land just outside the school bounds. They said they approached the craft and two mute greys emerged from the disc and spoke to them through telepathy. I wonder will they see it as racism when they get here and we're calling them greys.
Mute greys.
Fucking greys. They said they weren't afraid. That was the kids, that is, not the aliens. But the aliens were trying to coax them into the spaceship before giving up and flying away.
That's predatory behavior.
Yeah, hey kids, get in my spaceship. I got candy.
I got puppies
space candy.
Space candy sounds dodgy.
Teachers also claim to have seen the craft from inside the school, and the most interesting thing about it is 30 years on, not one of the kids have changed the details of their story. So, yep, there is alien pedophiles out there. Or for you Yanks, pedophiles.
Or now what you call them online is PDF files. So your post doesn't get blocked.
Send me a PDF file. No!
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting one, all right, but it's a pity that amateur ufologist Cynthia Hind fucked up the investigation so bad. Never question kids in packs, one at a time, so they can't link up their stories. It's adult 101, like the first parenting trick you learn when you have kids. When something happens, you treat them like they're suspects in a legal case, separate, and try to get them to turn on each other.
Your brother already told us the truth. We know what happened. You want to cut a deal? Huh? You want to cut a deal? It's not breaking. Get out the waterboard.
I was just thinking the hose waterboard makes more sense.
We're good parents, really.
Fantastic parents.
Pity they aren't raising snitches. Oh, we aren't raising snitches, though. I was going to say
no, we're not raising snitches.
Doesn't matter how much we waterboard them, the kids refuse to turn on each other. Kind of proud of them, really.
They do kind of can hear them whispering, snitches get stitches to each other.
I drove that into them from an early age. Like, snitches get stitches, kid.
Anyway, it was Roswell where the big discovery happened. Lucas spent 9 months in New Mexico questioning locals, relatives of citizens who lived in the area at the time of the event, and even 1 or 2 original first-hand accounts.
Are you getting information I didn't get?
Why?
Lucas spent months in New Mexico.
What did I say?
9 months in New Mexico. You clearly know more than I do.
Enough to have a baby. He also went out to this. Did I say 9 months? I don't know why that was in my head.
George Lucas really just had a fucking bit in the side that he impregnated and had to run after Roswell and find a good excuse to tell fucking his missus.
Stop that slander. He also went out to the sites of the crashes because while Roswell has one official crash, I believe there are multiple claims of multiple vessels being found at the time. And either way, it doesn't matter because it was the original site Lucas focused most of his energy on, and it was there that he did most of the digging. Unofficially, because the US Army were still fairly protective of the site, Lucas spent 9 months, no, I'm joking. Lucas spent months with archaeologists he had hired for the expedition, pulling apart every inch of the alleged crash site, mostly with no luck and no interesting finds. Now, you said earlier the most problematic aspect of George Lucas isn't greed, isn't sex, and it's not a god complex. It's just simple anger management issues. The more he dug, the less likely he was that he would find anything. And instead of accepting this as a sign that maybe there was nothing left to find if there was ever anything at all.
Easy, no.
Yeah, I know you're a believer, but I won't shit all over your Roswell story.
Roswell
Anyway.
happened. It's fact. It's real. Fuck! I literally spoke to a Green Beret soldier this week and I never asked him if Roswell was real.
He mightn't have been told. That's a need to know. Unless you're working there, I'm certain security clearance. I'd say if they're sending you over fighting wars over this side, you don't need to know if Roswell was real or not. I'm sure you'll talk to him again. You can ask him. Anyway, instead of accepting that there might be nothing there to find,
because we never accept that there was nothing there to find because there was something there to find, okay?
Shut up! Lucas instead began taking his frustrations out on his hired hands, the archaeologists.
Yeah, I understand that.
Excuse me? Taking your frustration out on the archaeologists. Okay.
Fuck the archaeologists. There was aliens there. People saw them.
Yeah.
Little tiny coffins. were
Okay, but
ordered.
maybe if there is, you're asking an archaeologist to come in and find proof. If the archaeologist can't find proof, they can't write a report saying, we found proof.
They didn't try hard enough.
Archaeologists are scientists. Leave them alone.
They didn't try hard enough.
According to one of the archaeologists on the dig, Lucas would go into wild fits of rage, claiming they weren't finding anything because the archaeologists didn't believe in the theory, saying they hadn't researched enough before the dig began and were only there for a paycheck. Sounds like they didn't give him the answers that he wanted.
No. Because they didn't do the research, they didn't know what they were fucking looking for, did they? Meaning the alien tech could have been staring them right in the fucking face and they just passed it on fucking by, didn't they? Didn't even know what it was they were looking for. Yeah.
I would argue that no archaeologist worth their salt isn't going to do a bit of background research beforehand. I really think this might be George throwing a hissy fit. But anyway, things eventually came to a head in early 1976. The weather wasn't the best. A lot of sandstorms were hitting the crew hard, and after months of fruitless work and months of being on the receiving end of George's tantrums, the crew quit, leaving Lucas alone in the Chihuahuan Desert.
Yeah, this is when the story really starts.
I can feel your excitement
You're
from
about to
here.
be proven fucking wrong.
Are you going to be able to control yourself through all of this?
Not at all.
Okay, cool. Right. Well, his name was Master Yoda, actually, and I'm getting to it, so relax.
Oh, yeah. I was supposed to say something. There, wasn't
You were.
Yeah.
About a little green ghost.
Yep.
Alien ghost.
I? Let's
That's
get
it.
on with the little green
Okay,
alien
cool.
ghost story. Let's do this.
All right. So, according to George Lucas, on March the 5th, 1976, the same day his dig crew had packed up and left him, the sandstorms were particularly bad. So he spent most of the day locked inside his RV, which he had been living out of for the duration of the dig. The generator that he used for electricity was dead, and the weather made travel virtually impossible. So Lucas spent the day studying over his research and planning his next move, all by candlelight. He said he'd been working from about 5 p.m. that evening, not long before the bust up with the crew. At some point, he drifted off at his desk, and he says to this day he wasn't sure what time he woke, but when he did, it was to a bright blue glow emanating from inside the RV. Sitting across the room for him was what looked like a small green goblin-like thing. Standing at just over 2 foot tall and dressed in a thick beige robe, the creature appeared to have a bluish glow outlining it and was almost translucent, solid in the sense that you could make out all his features, but through him you could see.
Ah, I see what you did there.
Thank you.
Very nice.
The creature claimed to be the ghost of an alien who had lived a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and claimed to be the head of a religious order known as the Jedi. He explained to George in a strange, cryptic way of speaking that he was appearing before him using the Force, an energy field that surrounds all living things, and when mastered, unlocks power far beyond that of what human physics can understand.
When you say cryptic way of speaking, from what I can tell, he just said everything out of sequence.
Yeah.
Like some strange backward talk. It all made sense to George, but he said it took a minute to figure out the alien spirit's dialect.
Understand that I can. George claims the alien said that he had lived for nearly 900 years, in his galaxy before leaving the earthly plane and becoming one with the Force. And don't worry, we'll explain in depth what the Force is soon enough.
Yeah. He said Yoda explained it was taking him a huge amount of energy to project himself this far out into the universe, especially since he himself had been dead for thousands of years at this point. So while he'd like to fill him in on all of the details, his time was limited. He explained to Lucas that his path in this world was of great importance, that he would be the man to usher mankind into a whole new world. Scratch that! A whole new galaxy. And in turn, help keep balance in the Force. He told Lucas that on the right path you are. In the area, the information you seek, find you will. Continue you must, so the history of the galaxy you can tell.
Good job. Yoda then provided Lucas with coordinates for where to dig, and there he said he would find what he was searching for. Lucas then said the creature began to fade, signing off with the phrase, May the Force be with you. Shocked but feeling vindicated, Lucas sat in the dark, too excited to sleep and too wired to even stay sitting down. He said for the rest of the dark hours left in the night, he paced the RV and prepared for his next dig at the coordinates given to him by Yoda. And at first light, he set off to the location where he would allegedly find the legendary holodisc.
So this next part of the story is very Joseph Smith and the Mormon seeing stones, right?
Yeah.
Even I have had a bit of trouble with this one, but we'll power on.
It is in the sense that Lucas finds a magical artifact that only he knows how to use, at first at least. It didn't stay like that though. Smith was always protective of the so-called seeing stones. And when anyone asked to see them or asked to try to use them, Smith would claim that God would not allow it. George's golden god did not hold him to the same restrictions, and over time George would teach his most loyal followers, Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni and Kathleen Turner, how to activate and use the holodisc. But yeah, he was selective about who used it or who he said would be able to use it.
So where old Joey Smith said God said no, George was willing to share the hollow disc, but didn't just hand it out willy-nilly. And he didn't make anyone wear weird sex underwear where they could only like stick their willy out of and shake it around. Yeah. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's talk about finding the disc and the so-called golden god you spoke of.
Okay, so George took off to the coordinates passed on to him by the Goblin-like Jedi Master Yoda, and there he said he dug for days in different areas, but with no luck.
I've said it before on the show, but we used to spend our entire summers in a caravan park by the beach, right?
Yeah.
So I was constantly playing in the sand as a child. And I can tell you firsthand, trying to find something you buried 5 minutes ago on a beach is pretty much fucking impossible. And that is wet, solid sand. And with people, rocks, and dunes around you to kind of mark your location. So I can only imagine in a desert with rough coordinates and dry, loose sand that you're really looking for a needle in a haystack here.
Oh, yeah.
The sand is constantly shifting with the weather. Contents underneath are most likely going to shift and move around as well because of the constantly evolving landscape. Something buried supposedly thousands of years ago should take a team and a lot of equipment to locate, and even with that, some luck would be needed.
Yep. So for 7 days and 7 nights, George dug. George studied the landscape and tried every mathematical equation he could to account for shifting sand to make out where the disc may be in relation to his old coordinates. And then he said he heard the voices. At first, he thought it was Yoda, and to this day, he definitely thinks Yoda was one of the voices, but there were more. George said a rush of ancient voices attacked his senses, overwhelmed him, and took control. He heard the voices as if they were standing in a small room with him. The room was his mind, and this was their message to him.
Bring back balance to your world, George, as I did. These are your first steps. Rise and take them. Follow the light, George. Reach out with your feelings. The light lights the way. No shit, fucking Sherlock. Every Jedi who ever lived lives in you. Let it guide you. Feel the Force flowing through you. You are not alone. Alone. Never you have been. The Force will be with you always.
Should add really cool echoes over that. Should add echoes over that when we're in editing. Be class. So, and with that final line, it all became so clear. George said he looked instinctively to a point in the wide open desert land and instantly knew where to dig. But almost for extra assurance, a beam of light from the sun shone through the cloudy sky, touching only the plot of land that had drawn George's attention. There he dug 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 feet deep before he hit something. A small wooden box decorated in a strange script. The dialect, he claimed at the time, looked like nothing he had seen before on Earth. There was no keyhole, no buttons or latch to open it. So he gave it a tug, but nothing happened. Then he remembered the disembodied messages he had just received before finding the box. He closed his eyes and reached out with his feelings. He said he could feel the force flowing through him, electrifying every molecule in his body. When he opened his eyes again, the box sat in his hands, now with the lid wide open. Inside, a small metal disc similar to a hockey puck sat in what looked like a satin-lined, cushioned interior.
Damn, I got goosebumps. I love this alien shit.
Can tell. George returned to his trailer, his body exhausted, but his mind still charged from the find. He sat at his desk and examined the disc. It, like the box, had no switches, no buttons. It was smooth, chrome-like solid metal. No seams to account for how its interior might have been constructed, no screws, no nothing. And for all intents and purposes, it was exactly as we described before, like a metal hockey puck. And then as he was about to put it away for the night, it shot to life. From the center of the disc, a blue, semi-transparent cone shot out, and in it a face appeared. It wasn't a human, it wasn't alien, it was a machine, a robot or droid, as Lucas would later start referring to them as. And it announced itself as such.
Hello, I am C-3PO, Human Cyborg Relations, an unwilling god of the Ewoks. I, along with my small friend here, who is a famed astro-mech and war hero R2-D2, have been charged with the task of relating to you the entire history of the galaxy as we know it.
He described the droid as human in design with 2 legs, 2 arms, a torso and a head. The robot was covered in gold plating with the exception of a red leg, and his stomach area was exposed, showing his thick wiring. He spoke in a soft British accent, but boasted an ability to speak over 6 million forms of communication. His companion R2-D2, who is never seen on camera because he was the camera, but can be heard arguing with C-3PO about his accuracy and details through whistles and beeps, he was described by we're back to R2-D2. He was described by the gold-covered protocol droid as a compact, cylindrical astromech droid standing roughly 3.5 feet tall. He featured a white, boxy chassis adorned with various blue-paneled utility ports, vents, and recessed latches. His head a rotating metallic blue-grey dome topped with a prominent glowing circular eye lens and a secondary sensor. He rolled on 2 treaded side wheels with a retractable third leg tucked into his center that extends for stability on rough terrain. Jesus Christ, that word.
Yeah, that droid just didn't want to brag. R2-D2 was fucking hung.
Mm-hmm.
He could use his astro dick as a third leg. You like it rough, baby? My third leg is made for rough terrains. What's up?
So he liked grounds.
Before we move on, one thing you just mentioned, that the gold-plated covering most of his body with the exception of the red leg.
Yeah.
This has been the one place George has been inconsistent with his story.
Okay.
I mean, he has stayed on point with what he has told the public since the late 70s. But this one little flaw in his story is where skeptics constantly attack. You just said George initially said C-3PO was gold with a red leg, and that is what he claimed day one. But if you look at a few of his interviews over the years, this off-colored limb is constantly changing. Sometimes it's a red leg, then it's a silver leg, then it's a red arm. Another time he said the droid appeared to him with no plating, no gold, just a metal skeleton with wires showing all over. And another time he said he had 1 or 2 gold plates, but mostly was made of mismatched, worn out, weather-beaten metal plates.
Yeah, Lucas has acknowledged this discrepancy in his story a few times. And he says because the information came to him at different periods and seemed to be told over a vast period of time, that the droid's appearance changed from time to time. He put it down to them living through multiple wars and most likely needing upgrading due to their age. Usually, the slip in description was down to the timing of the interview he was taking and the form C-3PO was taking at the time on the holidays.
So the droid didn't just tell him the whole story at once?
No. According to George, C-3PO explained that the history was vast. 25,000 years plus of galactic archaeology. The information had to be released over long stretches of time to get the details correct and not to overwhelm George or mankind as a whole, as George's job was to inform us of all this history. And let's face it, in the reels TikTok world of short attention span, no one is going to sit around for hours on end while a writer tells you he has found the entire history of the galaxy in Roswell, New Mexico.
Well, I hope that's not true, or we're about to fucking bomb for 4 episodes. But I would have. I mean, I'm currently doing so.
You are?
I'm at about 5 years. No, I'm actually after getting through all of it now. When I wrote this, I was 5 years at BBY.
5 years, baby.
And that stands for Before the Battle of Yavin, for all you uneducated Earthlings out there. So instead of BCA, what do we have now?
We have,
but it's not ADBC anymore, is it?
yeah, it used to be before Christ and Anno Domini, Anno Domini meaning Year of the Lord. Now it's BCE and CE, so before Common Era and Common Era. It's not that we have it now, it's actually been in use for a long time. It's just more widespread now. It's what we use now.
Well, from here on out, you will hear us say stuff like BBY and ABY. BBY is before the Battle of Yavin. ABY is after the Battle of Yavin. Yes. After the Battle of Yavin would be less because that's only 35 years, whereas BBY is 2,500 years. And we are going to cover 2,000 of those years today.
Okay. So we have a choice here. Do we get cracking on 25,000?
Well, I think I just answered that one.
Yeah.
So,
sorry.
Yeah, let's get into the history of the galaxy, and we can circle back around at the end of the series in a few weeks to see how people treated George and how they reacted to George after all this information came out. We'll kind of look at that in episode 4.
Okay.
So now we've kind of looked at George. We've looked at how he came across this information. And at the very end of episode 4, we'll discuss the reaction and how people felt about it and how he felt about it.
Okay.
But from this point on, we are pretty much focusing on the lore that George Lucas has fed us since the 70s. Okay?
Yeah.
So we are going to treat this like it is fact, okay? We're just going to get right in here and we're going to talk. You should love this episode, right? Because usually when I bring up aliens to Bunny here, she looks at me and she's like, oh, not again.
No, I don't mind alien stories. I like alien stories. But not again. I'm joking.
But this isn't your typical alien story.
I know. No, I'm well aware. You keep telling me I should love this episode.
This is history, war, politics. That's mostly, we're not going to be sitting here talking about different alien species. We're not going to be sitting here talking about like fucking galactic ships or any of that shit. This is all a big long story of war and politics and history. So I mean,
okay.
And now I think I wrote that down already, so that's kind of gonna fuck me up, isn't it? Where did I put that? All right, so if I repeat myself, you know why I'm repeating myself. Let's go.
So we discussed this earlier. This is going to take a few weeks to get through. Today we'll explain the Force, what it is, how it works, and the natural and biological elements. Then we'll go back to 25,000 BBY and move forward with summary outlines of what was happening in the galaxy.
Yeah, the intro of this story has gone a bit longer than I thought. I was planning to try and get us up to the Mandalorian Wars, which was said to have taken place between 3,976 to 3,960 BBY. So that's just over 20,000 years of history in one episode. So I don't think that's going to happen today.
No.
But let's just see how far we can get.
Okay, fair enough. So after the find in Roswell and his initial unlocking of the holodisk information, George returned to his home in California. He locked himself in his home and became a bit of a recluse for a number of years as he documented this mountain of information. So here we go. Let's get started with the history of the galaxy according to George Lucas.
I'm excited.
Hey!
Now, before we kick off, is this the stuff that I said already? It would be unfair of me to sit back and... Yeah, all right. This is... No, I haven't said this already. This is fine. We're doing great. Very professional podcast. We don't do shit in the fly at all here. So it will be... usually the format is you're the narrator, I'm the commentator, right? You kind of tell us the story and I kind of put my 2 cents in and then you reply to my 2 cents. But that would be kind of unfair of me to do to you today.
Okay.
Because most of it is narration and very little of it is commentating. So we're going to jump back and forth here and tell bits of the story as we go.
Yeah.
To kind of even it out a bit. So Yeah, I'm being pure professional here. I'm just having a look at it. So yeah, we're kind of going. It's a live action style here.
Cool.
Which is available exclusively on Patreon at the Harverse Network every Thursday. When we talk a lot more about this over there right now, if you want to go check it out. So let's take it section by section. I'll read some, you read some, and we'll just see how far we get through the galaxy today. Cool. Okay. Hang on. Hey, well, let's just. I'm a little lost. Where am I, Amy?
Right here.
Here? There?
Yeah, here.
Everywhere?
I just clicked.
Okay.
Oh, you can't see. What if I highlight it?
No, I can see it. I just don't know if I've said it already. Let's take it from...
Okay, so
what is the Force?
To C-3PO,
what is the Force? Let's go from what is the Force?
Is a fundamental energy that permeates every corner of the galaxy, acting as the bedrock of reality itself. It's not merely a tool for those who can manipulate it, but a living, omnipresent current that binds all existence together.
Yeah, that's what just happened to me there. I was trying to talk, but the Force was flowing through me and it was telling me stuff and I just couldn't focus on what was in front of me.
Okay. It functions as the physical and metaphysical gravity of the universe, ensuring that everything from the smallest subatomic particle to the largest celestial body remains interconnected within a singular cohesive system. To exist within the galaxy is to exist within the Force, as it's the bridge between the physical plane and the greater cosmic order, dictating the movement of energy, the progression of time, and the inevitable outcome of cause and effect across the 25 millennia of recorded history.
So essentially, what we believe is God creating, controlling, and manipulating the world, people, and our faith is actually the Force.
Mm-hmm.
But unlike God, the Force is visually present and proven within this era and part of this universe. Right?
Exactly. The connection between the Force and life is biological and symbiotic, anchored by microscopic organisms known as midichlorians. These entities reside within the cells of all living beings and serve as the essential interface between the individual and the cosmic energy field. A living being's capacity to perceive or influence the Force is directly correlated to the concentration of these symbionts in their blood. This means that Force sensitivity is not a supernatural gift granted to a select few, but a biological reality based on one's natural capacity to commune with the field. Nature acts as the primary conductor because the Force flows through all living things, every organism from the flora of a primitive planet to the most complex sentient species acts as a sensory node, collectively contributing to the awareness of the Force. Consequently, to disconnect from the natural world is to limit one's access to this energy, as the Force relies on the collective pulse of biological life to remain vibrant and communicative.
So you mentioned the Force as something that could potentially be manipulated or used by Force-sensitive beings with a higher than usual midichlorian count, meaning a higher concentration of midichlorians in their bloodstream.
Yeah.
Essentially, if you work out how to use the Force to your advantage, you can you get a form of superpower, heightened senses, more strength, a greater capacity for injury and pain, telepathy, telekinesis, among other things.
Yeah, and these abilities are rare and controlled when found in a being. Special training is required to master it. Training which is regulated and taught by a specific group known as the Jedi Order.
Yeah, think ninja monks with laser swords and great discipline, and that's what a Jedi is.
Exactly. The Jedi are keepers of balance when it comes to the Force, and they work only in the light, refraining from emotional attachments or pursuing personal gain. Despite this, the gatekeeper ways of the Jedi doesn't mean all Force users stay on the path of the light side. Alternatively, there are Force-sensitive beings who move to the dark side and down the path of self-indulgence, greed, and personal gain. There are many cults and offshoots of dark side practitioners, but the main and most powerful of them all are the enemy of the Jedi, and they're absolute opposites in nearly every way, and they are known as the Order of the Sith.
To explain the light and the dark a little deeper, The duality of the Force is a reflection of how a conscious being chooses to interact with the current. The light side is defined by resonance and alignment. It is the state of existing in harmony with the natural flow, prioritizing surrender, selflessness, and the preservation of the symbiotic relationship that sustains life. It requires the practitioner to act as a vessel for the Force, allowing the energy to pass through them without obstruction or ego. Conversely, the dark side is not a distinct energy source, but a parasitic corruption of the natural flow. It arises when an individual exerts their own will and desire over the collective, creating friction within the system. By tapping into raw, volatile emotions like rage, fear, and possessive greed, a user forces the energy of the universe to bend towards their own narrow goals. This process is inherently corrosive. Effectively acting as an infection within the biological feedback loop that drains the vitality of both the user and the surrounding environment to fuel an ego-driven manifestation of power. Balance is the most misinterpreted concept in the history of the galaxy. Often erroneously viewed as a neutral compromise between light and dark. In reality, balance represents the natural, undisturbed state of the Force, a state of health where the system is free from parasitic corruption. Now, I am going to read this part, but I wrote this part before I dug deeper, so it's not completely right.
Okay, go for it.
This is more the Jedi's view of the Force than it is of balancing the Force than it is actually balancing the Force.
Okay.
Just as a body operates optimally when it is free from disease, the Force reaches equilibrium only when the parasitic influence of the dark side is purged, allowing the symbiotic flow of the light to govern the galaxy. In the grand scheme of things, the Force acts as a self-correcting organism. When the internal integrity of the galaxy is threatened by those who seek to twist the current for personal gain, the Force naturally gravitates towards a restorative event. Through the vast 25,000-year history, historical records indicate that balance is rarely a static condition, but rather a constant, reactive pulse that the Force emits to flush out stagnation and restore the natural order, ensuring that life continues to evolve in alignment with the fundamental energy that binds it. Now, like I said, like even here, I wrote that this is a new one to me because I always saw it as to balance the Force. You need to embrace both sides, the light and the dark. And when I wrote that, I was kind of surprised to see it.
Mm-hmm.
But as we go on, we will realize that this is definitely not the case.
Okay.
So we can ignore that whole paragraph, which no, I don't know if your paragraph makes sense. See, this is why
Stop
I should
me if it
revise
doesn't.
my shit after I've written the other. But yeah, let's give it a go. So
from Lucas's account of things, a lot of times people could be Force sensitive, and from a primitive world where the Force isn't fully understood, meaning that if they're not trained correctly and guided by a true light Jedi Knight or Master, then the capacity for another dark side user to manipulate that power, or for the untrained Force user to accidentally fall into the dark side, is always a present threat as well.
Okay, so that's the Force in a nutshell. At least according to the Jedi when it comes to the whole balance side of it. But the Force, we've explained what the Force is in the terms of...
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, before even reading this, I kind of had that little bit of a belief myself.
Yeah.
That there's an energy inside of us and that it returns into the universe once we die and we become...
Well, I do believe
you know?
that. Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense to me straight off the bat. So let's take it back to where it all started. A planet called Titan. 25,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. And talk about the origins of the Jedi and the understanding of the Force.
Okay. So the genesis of the galaxy's spiritual order began on Titan, as you said, a world uniquely situated in a system governed by a volatile celestial tension between two binary stars. This environment, where one star provided perpetual radiance, while the other cast deep inescapable shadow, mirrored the dualistic nature of the planet itself. It was to this world that the earliest Force sensitives were drawn, not through organised recruitment or institutional mandate, but by a profound, inexplicable instinct. Individuals from across the galaxy were pulled towards Titan as if by an unavoidable magnetic force, converging on a world that seemed to demand their presence. These pioneers were the progenitors of the first of an order that would predate the nomenclature of Jedi by millennia. They were the Jedi.
And back then, the Jedi, which thank God you looked up because I was calling them the Jedi. The Jedi didn't give a shit about the binary good versus evil morality that everyone else obsessed over later.
Yeah.
They looked at that binary and basically called it a rookie move. They rejected the idea that the world has just heroes and villains. Instead, they were all about absolute balance. They identified two natural, essential aspects of the Force. Ashla, which represented calm and creation, and Bogan, which was all about passion, chaos, and impulse to burn it all down. Which sounds great in theory, but it's basically like saying you're going to be a balanced person by spending Monday meditating in the spa, Tuesday setting fire to a dumpster. It's a lot to ask of an average person.
Totally, but the Jedi doctrine dictated that both were necessary parts of the cosmic cycle. Like, training wasn't about suppressing the shadow, it was about being able to feel pure, unadulterated rage without losing your shit. It was total control through total exposure to the spectrum.
100%. There was no... This is always been my interpretation of balance when it came to this. Because, yeah, we're only talking about it now, but Bunny here will tell you that I'm obsessed with this shit, and I am a big George Lucas fan, and I have followed his work for
every Christmas.
decades.
He educates me about this.
It's a Christmas time kind of subject.
Feels like it.
Except for when you're talking about the Mandalorians, which we'll be talking about sometimes. It's very summer-like. Anyway, let's get on with it.
So Titan was more than a backdrop. It was a conscious, reactive entity that enforced this philosophy. The planet functioned as a literal barometer for the spiritual state of its inhabitants. If anyone leaned too hard into one side, getting too high on the light or too lost in the dark, the planet would respond with immediate cataclysmic force. Massive unnatural storms would erupt, marked by atmospheric lightning and seismic activity that could render entire regions of the surface uninhabitable in a matter of hours. And these weren't random disasters, they were systematic corrections.
So Titan is basically the God planet. The living, breathing embodiment of the Force. It was a gated community where if you acted like an asshole, the neighborhood would literally try to kill you to maintain the property values.
I wouldn't mind a neighborhood like that. Anyway, to survive...
It sounds like a neighborhood of BTKs to me, to be honest with you. Your grass is too long. I'm going to tie you up, torture you, and kill you. Yeah.
But it helps if you've got asshole neighbors, which we don't. To survive, the Jedi established a system of restorative exile. When a practitioner drifted beyond the threshold of balance, they were sent to one of Titan's two moons to undergo realignment. That sounds culty. Those who succumbed to the parasitic nature of the dark side were sent to Bogan to master their own chaos. Conversely, those who became too detached or passive were sent to Ashla to reconnect with the turbulent vitality of the Force.
See, you just said that was culty, but this wasn't a prison sentence. This was basically mandatory spiritual spa retreat for people who couldn't keep their shit together.
I get it, but if you tell somebody they're being sent to for realignment, it sounds very Scientology. You know?
No, you need some re-education, buddy.
Yeah. So for countless generations, this equilibrium remained intact. But as the Jedi expanded, they introduced the one variable the planet's feedback loop couldn't account for: individual desire. While the philosophy of balance was meant to be a universal standard, it started to crumble under the weight of human nature. Students who gravitated toward the light sought to isolate themselves in its clarity, while those who tasted the seductive potency of the dark side fought balance to be a total drag.
So, holy wars, religious disputes, and the manipulation of faith for personal gain, turns out it's not just a human trait, it's a galaxy-wide infection.
That is a sick kind of comfort, I guess. But at least we aren't the worst in the galaxy.
Yeah, but to be fair, we don't even know how to use the Force, and we're still bowing down to the darkest shit humanity has to offer. We can be fascist, genocidal lunatics without magic laser powers and still get the job done.
That's true.
We're the overachievers in the hate department of the galaxy.
Yep. So the transition from internal philosophical divergence to open conflict was insidious and gradual. A faction began to embrace the dark side not as a transient state, but as an exclusive path toward dominance. They rejected the necessity of balance, labeling it as a weakness. As the schism widened, those committed to the original doctrine were forced into resistance, culminating in the first planetary scale conflict between force wielders. Tython, once the cradle of this fragile order, became the site of its undoing. The atmospheric defences, sensing a total collapse, erupted in endless, violent storms. The war was total. Temples were razed, records were obliterated, and the landscape was scarred by titanic clashes.
And again, thank fuck our world has yet to embrace the Force. Imagine if the Earth could fight back right now. I'm pretty sure the planet would be so disappointed in mankind it would just commit suicide and jump into the sun. And is that why Irish weather is so fucking bad? We discussed this at the start. Is Irish weather so bad because we have to deal with all that shit with the Brits for so long that Ireland's just like, fuck ye, throw rain in them. If we make the weather bad enough, the Brits won't come back.
Oh, but you think to balance the Force, and the Brits were so awful to us, they give us sunshine the whole time. Do you know? Just saying. So in the wake of the devastation, the survivors emerged into a world left in ruins. The conclusion they reached would resonate for the next 25,000 years. Balance was an unsuitable ideal. The failure wasn't in the philosophy, it was in the fallibility of those practicing it. They recognized that as long as the dark side remained an accessible option, the temptation for totalizing power would inevitably lead to conflict. They made the definitive, radical choice to exorcise the dark side from their doctrine, initiating a shift towards a singular, exclusionary focus on the light and effectively ending the era of the Jedi.
As soon as our religion gets overrun by extremists, you know you're heading down a bad path.
Absolutely.
Faith is usually a positive thing. It helps a lot of people who wouldn't be here without it, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
But when the greed of man takes control of the narrative and people are happy to just blindly follow, stories designed for guidance suddenly become word for word gospel with a total refusal to evolve.
If a god or gods exist, I think their version of Earth is being totally distorted by people who can't seem to move with the times.
Most religions are built on love, guidance, forgiveness. I mean, it's essentially be the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But what they preach and what they practice, as we have mentioned more than once on this fucking show, are very, very fucking different things.
Absolutely.
It's the same old story. Turn a philosophy into an institution and watch the rot set in.
Yeah. So, well, that's how it went down on Tython. But let's move on and see how it fared for the new and improved Jedi Order. The transition from Jedi to Jedi wasn't just a rebrand. It was a fundamental reactionary restructuring of existence. Having witnessed the existential trauma of the Force Wars, the survivors rejected the volatility of the natural balance that they had once championed. And in its place, they engineered a doctrine predicated on total emotional austerity. Attachment, passion, and the tumultuous fluctuations of the human heart were recategorized as existential threats, pathogens that, if left unchecked, would inevitably lead back to the corruption of the dark side.
This is where they really shit the bed. Right?
Okay.
They strip the teachings of all their nuance, favoring a cold, unwavering commitment to discipline, peace, and cognitive control. It is really kind of a parallel to the Catholic Church. You can't have sex with women. You can't get married. They never said anything about the little boys. Shh. It was designed for safety, but essentially it severed the practitioner from the full unfiltered spectrum of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
They replaced a living, breathing truth with a rigid, exclusionary framework that prioritized structural security over actual reality.
Yeah, see, this isn't healthy. They're purposely lobotomizing natural human emotion to preserve peace, but most people can't achieve that level of discipline, not long term anyway. Eventually, desire, lust, and love are going to step in, and that's something, it's not something that you can just flip a switch and control. The Jedi had risks, sure, but they definitely understood that balance was the only way to not go completely insane.
Yeah, world do that you though. But I will be honest, anytime I have read about this and even studying it this week, I am 100 million billion % sure I would have ended up a Sith. So when you get the shit kicked out of you though enough, your first instinct is to build a wall.
Yeah.
Or
But
if you think the Mexicans are coming in and you're like, oh no, they're going to take our job, we better build a wall. You stupid orange cunt.
yeah, but as we're about to find out, purging the dark side doesn't eliminate war. It just creates a natural enemy.
It gives the Jedi a permanent punching bag, and they've been stuck in an eternal war with it ever since. Now, let's take that religious uncertainty and mix in a healthy dose of politics, because what could possibly go wrong when religious leaders team up with politicians to rule the galaxy?
Simultaneous to this spiritual pivot, the galaxy at large was undergoing a profound shift towards unification. Disparate, isolated star systems began to coalesce into a web of stable hyperspace lanes, transforming the map of a known space into a functioning network of trade and diplomacy. As communication lines solidified and alliances matured, the institutional framework of the Galactic Republic emerged, the first attempt to govern the galaxy as a single cohesive entity. And this new order required more than just laws and bureaucrats. It required a physical manifestation of its authority.
Yeah, the fledgling Jedi Order, having already successfully re-engineered themselves into a disciplined ascetic force, stepped into this void. By aligning their mission with the nascent Republic, the Jedi transformed from a group of monastic philosophers into a state-sanctioned guardians of the galaxy, effectively binding their ideological faith to the political stability of the Republic for millennia to come. Talk about a deal with the devil, huh?
So the transition from Jedi to the Jedi was the most consequential pivot in galactic history, serving as the blueprint for every tragedy that followed. By choosing to suppress emotion rather than master it, the early Jedi signaled a fundamental retreat for the truth of the Force. They feared the dark side not because it was an alien corruption, but because they lacked the discipline to remain balanced in its presence. Consequently, they institutionalized the suppression of passion as a defensive measure. This rejection of balance transformed a holistic philosophy into a binary struggle.
Because they codified the light as good and the dark as evil, they inadvertently created the very dynamic they sought to prevent. By declaring the dark side off limits, they turned it into a forbidden, taboo power, ensuring that any practitioner drawn to the shadows will be cast out, hardened by resentment, and incentivized to weaponize that darkness against the Order. This is why the conflict between the Jedi and the Sith would become inevitable. It was a feedback loop written into the DNA of their new religion. The Jedi's inability to integrate the dark side meant that they were constantly fighting to excise a part of the Force that they refused to actually understand.
Ultimately, this era dictates why balance was destined to be misunderstood for the next 25,000 years. By abandoning the middle path, the Jedi ensured that balance would never again be seen as a state of equilibrium, but rather as a total victory of one side over the other. The entire tragedy of the subsequent millennia, the collapse of the Republic, the rise of the Empire, and the cyclical wars, was not born for some vague cosmic fate.
No, it was born from the singular, calculated decision of a group of survivors on Titan who decided that it was safer to fear the dark than to possess the strength to walk through it. It's the ultimate safe space failure.
The era of the Jedi Order's dominance brought with it an illusion of stability, but it couldn't extinguish the innate human impulse towards inquiry. While the Order had successfully codified the light as the only legal path, they were unable to fully purge the historical records of the Jedi era. Within the deep, vaulted archives of monastic worlds like Ossus, ancient data fragments remained. Theoretical studies and dangerous techniques that the New Order deemed too significant to erase, yet too perilous to integrate.
This archive became the catalyst of the First Great Schism. A faction of Jedi, initially driven by intellectual curiosity, began to interrogate the limitations of their own dogma. They posited that the Order's total rejection of the dark side was a strategic vulnerability. To defeat an enemy, they argued, you have to at least know what makes them tick. What started as a scholarly pursuit quickly mutated into a re-evaluation of potential, as these seekers started questioning whether the Jedi's rigid restraint was actually hindering their own evolution.
Yeah, it's like when you're a kid and your parents tell you don't touch the stove and they don't tell you why it burns. They just say don't do it. And eventually some kid like me is going to touch the stove just to see if they're lying. That was a terrible Christmas. I walked around with a big blistered thumb.
Oh.
But it wasn't my parents. It was a Chinese lady with a tiny wok, and she in the Chinese restaurant, and she handed down a tiny wok and all my food was in it. And she was like, don't touch it. It's really hot. And I was like, how hot can this be? And I didn't put my fingers on it, and it was
Why were you
scalding.
eating Chinese at Christmas?
Christmas Eve.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. You got it. And these guys become increasingly assertive, finding the Order's slow, meditative process inadequate for the problems they wanted to solve. They started crossing the lines established by the code, exploring the taboo stuff like life manipulation, extracting power from raw emotion, and the aggressive imposition of will. They didn't view themselves as dark in the way the dogma described. They perceived themselves as an evolutionary leap forward, viewing the mainstream Jedi as dogmatic traditionalists who were artificially suppressing the galaxy's natural potential.
This was the pivotal moment where the dark side ceased to be a mere temptation and began to coalesce into a distinct competing civilization. By validating these practices as superior, the dissidents shed their status as wayward monks and became architects of a rival philosophy. They no longer sought to live within the Republic's framework of quiet guardianship. They sought to command it. When the inevitable confrontation occurred, it was a clash of two fundamentally different definitions of sentient potential.
Yeah, the First Great Schism proved that the Jedi's decision to banish the dark side hadn't destroyed it. It had just forced it to reorganize, professionalize, and wait for the precise moment to strike back.
The conflict was psychologically catastrophic for the Jedi. It stripped away the foundational veneer of unity, exposing the reality that the restrictive dogma had created a pressure cooker of resentment. The war pitted mentor against apprentice, transforming sacred halls into crucibles of lethal debate. When the Jedi Council finally suppressed the uprising, they opted for an absolutist resolution. They refused to entertain the possibility of reintegration. The dissidents were sentenced to permanent exile, cast out into the trackless volatile expanses of the unknown regions.
Yeah, the Jedi called it mercy. In reality, they were just taking their failures, putting it in a box, and shipping it to a part of the galaxy they didn't have to look at.
The journey into the unknown regions was an ordeal that winnowed the exiled faction down to the most resilient practitioners. Many perished as their vessels were claimed by chaotic, unmapped hyperspace currents, and those who survived the transit did so at a significant cost, forced to discard the remnants of their Jedi indoctrination to survive in a wilderness that didn't give a damn about their philosophy. Stripped of the Republic's support systems and protections, the exiles had to rely entirely on the very dark side practices that they'd been casting out for exploring. The unknown regions acted as a furnace, burning away the last vestiges of their Jedi identity and replacing it with something far more primal, focused, and dangerously singular. They weren't refugees anymore. They were a civilization in stasis, waiting for a catalyst to turn their exile back toward the galaxy that had discarded them.
It's the ultimate origin story.
Oh, fuck yeah, it is.
You kick someone out of their house, tell them they're garbage, and then act surprised when they come back 5 years later with a black belt and a plan to burn your house the fuck down.
Black belts and what? Burning houses down.
Yeah.
The arrival of the exiled Dark Jedi in the world of Korriban, am I saying that right, Korriban?
Korriban, yeah.
Korriban, marked the definitive end of their identity as former members of the Republic's order and the beginning of a genuine dark side civilization. Korriban was not merely a convenient refuge. It was a harsh, desolate landscape already saturated with an ancient, predatory darkness. More importantly, the planet was inhabited by the Sith species, a race whose biology and culture were intrinsically hardwired into the dark side of the Force. Long before the arrival of the exiles, the native Sith had developed a society predicated on absolute power, social stratification through dominance, and arcane rituals that tapped directly into the planet's volatile energy. This was not a blank slate even, but an established, formidable dark side culture that possessed deep indigenous knowledge of the Force.
And let's be real, this is a match made in hell. When the exiles arrived, they didn't just walk in and take over with a generic war of conquest.
No.
They brought a new paradigm of systematic application to the raw, ritualistic power of the native Sith. Through a combination of superior technological knowledge, disciplined force application, and the exploitation of the locals' reverence for the power, the exiles elevated themselves to the status of god kings. Over several generations, the cultural and biological barriers between the two groups dissolved. The exiles provided the structure and the Jedi derived philosophy of ambition, while the native Sith provided the biological affinity and the brutal ancestral tradition of dark side mastery.
It's honestly the ultimate power couple of the ancient world. They birthed a unified, expansionist empire defined by the belief that the dark side was not a path to be feared, but a tool to be wielded to reshape reality. They had successfully created a mirror image of the Republic, one built not on collective security, but on the ruthless consolidation of power, and for the first time, they were positioned to challenge the galaxy that had once cast them out.
They codified a world view that stood in diametric opposition of the Jedi, where the Jedi advocated for the negation of the self to achieve peace. The Sith championed the exhalation of the self to achieve absolute power. Exaltation, right?
Yes.
Yes, I got that wrong. Their doctrine rested on the belief that the universe is inherently entropic and the power is the only objective reality. Thus, the purpose of the sentient being is not to serve a cosmic order, but to command it. In this system, emotion was not a vulnerability to be excised, but the primary catalyst for progress. Anger, desire, and hatred were viewed as refined instruments, the fuel that allowed practitioners to pierce the veil of the Force and exert their own will upon the material world. To the Sith, the Jedi's practices of suppression was not a virtue, but a self-imposed blindness that limited the potential of the soul.
And they didn't view the physiological and psychological toll. That's two hard words beside each other.
Physiological and psychological.
The physical scarring, the darkening of the eyes, the erosion of empathy as corruption. They reformed these side effects as evolutionary benchmarks. By pushing the body and spirit to the absolute limit of what they could channel, the Sith practitioners essentially underwent an artificial selection process. They embraced the volatility of the dark side, allowing it to rewrite their biological and spiritual architecture, viewing the resulting transformation as a shedding of weak, mundane humanity in favor of a superior apex form of existence. For thousands of years, the Sith operated in total isolation, utilizing the harsh environment of Korriban as a forge. During this epoch, they transformed the planet into a nexus of dark side power, constructing colossal tomb cities and sprawling temples that served both as fortresses and conduits for ancient, forbidden knowledge. They pioneered sophisticated forms of Sith alchemy, developing methods to manipulate life at a genetic level and enhance their own physical vessels. Their society became a strict meritocracy of violence, whose hierarchies were fluid and defined by one's ability to survive and dominate. The weak were systematically culled, ensuring that only the most potent and ruthless reached positions of authority.
And they never forgot. They maintained a singular collective memory, the betrayal of their exile. While the Republic and the Jedi Order expanded across the galaxy, becoming increasingly bureaucratic and complacent, the Sith nurtured a culture of perpetual readiness. They were not merely a lost faction of rebels, they were a civilization in a state of extended, disciplined gestation. Every ritual, every breakthrough in alchemy, and every generation of trained assassins was a preparation for the inevitable moment when their empire would return to the known galaxy to reclaim what they had lost. They did not just wait for an opportunity, they cultivated it, biding their time until the Republic's expansion inevitably brought the two long separated branches of the Force into a collision once again.
While the Sith Empire refined its mastery of the dark side in the shadows of the unknown regions, the Galactic Republic entered a period of unprecedented prosperity and stabilization. This era, characterized by the systematic mapping of hyperspace lanes and the aggressive integration of star systems into the central government, became the hallmark of galactic civilization. For the average citizen, the Republic was the ultimate guarantor of safety and economic structure. Within this structure, the Jedi Order transitioned from mere guardians to the central spiritual and diplomatic pillar of the state. Their temples became hubs of wisdom, and their presence became synonymous with the cessation of conflict. It was an epoch of grand architecture, interstellar exploration, and the solidification of the Republic as a singular, undisputed authority over the known galaxy.
To the governing bodies of the capital planet of Coruscant and a rank and file of the Jedi Council, the galaxy appeared to have finally achieved the state of permanent structural peace. The Jedi, increasingly intertwined with the legislative process of the Republic, adopted the comfort of their own institutional success. They viewed the history of the Force Wars and the First Great Schism as settled matters, closed chapters of a barbaric past that had been effectively pruned from the narrative of progress. Because the Republic's expansion was so total and its peace was so seemingly stable, the Order allowed its vigilance to atrophy. They had successfully built a galaxy that thrived on the light side principles of cooperation and restraint, never suspecting that their very success was the beacon drawing the exiled shadow back towards them.
It's just classic arrogance. While the Republic measured its strength in trade credits, diplomatic treaties, and mapped routes, the Sith were measuring their return in terms of alchemy, strategic position, and the cold, unyielding resolve of a civilization that had spent millennia preparing for a single, definitive act of vengeance. The stage was set for a collision between two worlds that had evolved in complete isolation, each viewing the other as not just an ideological opponent, but as an existential error that needed to be erased. The current state of the galaxy is defined by a profound dual-layer delusion that has persisted for thousands of years. On one side, the Jedi Order operates under the comforting, arrogant assumption that they had successfully purged the dark side, believing that by casting out the dissenters, they had purified the Force and secured the future of the Republic. On the other side, The Sith Empire remains cloaked in the unknown regions, believing that the refinement in the fires of exile has granted them the sole authentic mastery of the Force's true potential. Both institutions operate from a place of absolute certainty, and both are fundamentally, catastrophically wrong.
This is the great reoccurring error of the galaxy. The belief that the Force can be divided into victors and losers. The Sith were not born from an inherent primordial evil, but were forged in the crucible of rejection and state-sanctioned exile. When the Jedi chose to cast out the Dark Jedi rather than confront the failure of their own rigid dogma, they didn't eliminate the threat, they provided it with time, space, and motivation to evolve into something far more sophisticated and lethal.
The tragedy is that the Jedi effectively manufactured their own doom. By refusing to acknowledge the dark side as a natural, albeit dangerous, part of the Force, they forced it into the shadows where it could grow stronger, smarter, and more patient than the order that created it. This tension, the friction between the Republic's complacent light and the Sith Empire's calculated, vengeful shadow, is not an accidental development. It's the natural consequence of 25,000 years of refusal to understand that the Force cannot be cleansed, only lived. Everything that follows, from the upcoming Great Galactic War to the collapse of the Republic, is simply the inevitable release of the pressure that the Jedi have been building for millennia.
No, we said we'd try to make it to the Mandalorian War, but we have covered 20,000 years today.
We have?
And we're still 1,000 years and 2 more wars away from the Mandalorian War. So I think we can call it a day for this episode and come back next week with the return of the exiled Dark Jedi, who are now fully fledged Sith Lords. An enemy to the Jedi, an enemy the Jedi have yet to encounter. But encountered they will when we come back next week and kick things off with the Great Hyperspace War, approximately 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin.
Every time I see BBY, I'm just expecting baby. Same way as THX reads as thanks in my head. It's because we're text language babies.
Yeah, I see BBY and I instantly think BBL, Brazilian butt lift. I don't know what that would be. Brazilian butt yank?
Brazilian butt. Is that a yank with a Brazilian butt lift, or is it somebody pulling on a Brazilian butt that's had a lift?
That's up to you. I don't know. So if you want to hear more about the War with the Stars, then check out It's a Live Action on Patreon at the Horrorverse Network, where we talk a little bit more about what went on behind the scenes. Subs are only $5 a month.
Doms are extra?
Huh? Oh, yeah. Subs are $5, but if you want a dom, we can sort you out there too. A 7-day free trial for all new subscribers. Along with that, you will gain access to some of our older shows, along with mini-sodes like Mini Monsters and Real Talk with the Doctor.
And we also have the Friday Night Freak Show every Friday, where we search for some of the darkest events to be caught on tape and discuss them as you watch along. And on Monday night, you can catch me playing some games and chatting with the Doctor with Play and Slay with Bunny Rose. That's 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. with the first 2 hours free on Twitch and Patreon. And the last hour of Play and Slay After Dark will continue over on Patreon for all our subscribers. Come watch, chat, and listen as we talk movies, media, and look up fucked up stories on the web.
No, I will clarify. We have been promising that the Friday Night Freak Show would start for weeks, and we're trying. We're just trying to make everything as good as possible. We kind of did a rough run at Play and Slay last Monday. If you watched it, you would have heard mostly Bunny is out of screen for she's in the corner of the screen for most
We
of it.
just had the wrong mic.
You can barely hear her on the microphone. Her game is too loud. And then my mic was too close to my mouth, so every time I stopped talking, all you heard was
like an astronaut.
So I was, so it didn't go well, but we're tweaking things. We have some more ideas on how to fix it. We know what we're doing. We're going to try again this Monday, and we're hoping that by next Friday we'll be on to the Friday Night Freak Show. But we are working on it. They're works in progress, and the only reason it's taking so long to get out,
we're perfectionists.
Yeah, we want to try and make it good before we get there. And we have been highly debating what we're going to do for the Friday Night Freak Show. I think we finally kind of narrowed it down. Because the big problem I had, right, was when it came to the Friday Night Freak Show, I wanted to get footage that we could discuss that wouldn't cost the people extra to watch. So we've been finding apps that have free tiers and paid tiers. So if you go to something like, we'll say Phone TV, where Phone TV has an option to watch for free with ads or to pay $5 and to watch ad free with some extras. So in that case, we could watch that along with you, and you just have to pause us when the ads came on and then continue on when the ads were over, which would be a lot easier than saying, okay, this week you need Amazon Prime, this week you need Netflix, this week you need... So that's what we're kind of trying to play with at the moment. And we got some ideas, but we're going to give it a go next week and hope to God it works. Also, you can follow us if you want to know if it's going to work and if it's happening. You can follow us on socials at Alive Live Pod and at Bunny Rose IAA on Instagram and TikTok. Instagram is probably the easiest place to get in contact with us or to find us, because I do have stuff on TikTok, but we're not there as much. We post clips, updates, and pics of the gorgeous Bunny Rose there. And it's the easiest place to get in contact with us as well, like I just said.
Exactly. And don't forget, the pics on Instagram are just the tease. And if you want to see more of me and like the Insta stuff, then get on over to Patreon now, where I hide the stuff too hot for Instagram and the stuff that got our first TikTok account banned. Which isn't a hard fucking job on TikTok.
No, but they've been cool about it this time. So there you have it. Our Patreon is packed and Bunny is worth the price of admission alone. So go check that out now at the Horrorverse Network, only on Patreon. We'll be back next week with more tales from the Horrorverse. See y'all in same Alive Live time, same Horrorverse channel. Okay.
Love you. Bye-bye.